Is this Kathy?
Hi, how are you?
Good. I am not Teresa. We had changed that to make it be AustinUP volunteer. I'm a volunteer with AustinUP, and we're so happy to have you here. And Kathy, I understand we're going to have Carol Johnson on too. So let's see if we can see her screen. I'm going to go to participants and look for her. Carol, I see you there. I'm just going to ask you to start your video and then you can just unmute. While she's coming in, hey, Carol, good to see you. So today's forum is based on, like we said before, it's on employment and civic participation. And we're excited to have Kathy Green here, and she is a manager of outreach and advocacy for AARP. And we will be interviewing, actually she'll be interviewing Carol Johnson. And I'm kind of happy, Kathy, that you're here. I think you're going to introduce Carol because her resume is like 4 pages long. I didn't even know how I could shorten it. It's so long. And so I know that you know each other, and this is super, super interesting that we are able to talk about civic participation and that we've got somebody on the City of Austin staff who's actually helping with that. So we are just thrilled that you're here. Just 1 minute before we get started, I just wanted to let you all know who our sponsors are of today. And we are so thankful and grateful for them. AARP, City of Austin, Cummings Home Team, Essential Next Steps, Oasis Senior Living, Shelf Genie, Waywiser, United Healthcare, and WellMed. So those are just some of our sponsors. We also are going to have events in October, and it's going to be, actually don't have the new title down here, sorry about that, but November is going to be transportation, and then December is going to be social participation. So without further ado, I'm going to go off screen. Kathy, let me introduce you though. I've got a nice bio on you. It's about a half page, but Kathy is an accomplished leader with extensive public policy, nonprofit, and media experience in Texas. And she's been named the new manager of outreach and advocacy for AARP. And throughout her 25 years of comprehensive policy and advocacy career, which began as a legislative and policy analyst under former comptroller John Sharp. Green has worked in and around the state capitol as a lobbyist for nonprofits, as a legislative director in the House and the Senate, and as a policy advisor in the Texas Department of Agriculture. She joins AARP from No Kid Hungry Campaign, a national nonprofit devoted to ending childhood hunger, where she served as the Texas State Director and oversaw the management, development, and implementation of a multi-year strategic plan. From 2011 to 2018, as a Senior Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for Central Texas Food Bank, she developed and implemented their advocacy programs through a marriage of public policy and hunger awareness efforts. You hold a BA in Government and English from the University of Texas. Austin is a member of the Austin Public Library Foundation Board. Exciting, all the things that they've been able to do during COVID. And we're going to be talking a lot about that in social participation. Green also is involved with the Women's Symphony League, and her involvement in local government also extends to chairing and serving on many councils and working groups for both the Austin Independent School District and the City of Austin. So welcome so much, Kathy. And like I said, I'm going to go off video, but I'll be looking for comments and other things like that I might be able to interject with.
Great, thank you. Well, I am excited today to get to interview my longtime friend, Carol Johnson. And Carol, I don't have your resume right in front of me, but I will let you expound a little bit on your experience. Carol is currently the Civil Rights Officer for the City of Austin and has a very large background, lots of wealth of knowledge and experience on civil rights issues. So Carol, tell us a little bit about your background before you came to the City of Austin.
Sure. Thank you so much. And just thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm excited, always excited to talk about civil rights, and certainly about the topic that we're going to be discussing today. So I have worked in civil rights my entire career. I am a civil rights attorney. And before coming here, I started the first civil rights enforcement agency for the state of Arkansas, and also headed civil rights for the state of Oregon, and have worked actually across the country on various civil rights issues, and also worked in the federal sector for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, where I was the Program and Compliance Director for Region 10, serving the states of Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. So, and I came here immediately from Seattle. So I'm really excited to be here and to serve as Austin's first civil rights officer and the first director for the Office of Civil Rights for here in Austin. So I'm excited to be here and excited to serve in this role.
Wonderful. Well, we are excited to have you here. So we're going to talk a little bit today about age discrimination. I will say that AARP has been fighting age discriminations for many decades. Our founder, Ethel Percy Andrus, in 1958, when our organization started, fought against forcing older workers into retirement. And AARP continued to be integral to the passage of the Age Discrimination in Employment Act in 1967, and also the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act in 1990. So with all that legislation enacted, it seems like age discrimination shouldn't still be an issue. However, AARP reports that about 78% of workers ages 40 to 65 have seen or experienced age discrimination at work. Why is that still happening, Carol?
Well, I think those numbers are horrible, obviously. And I think that a lot of that is just due that ageism has really just become an acceptable bias, you know. And, you know, when you talk about ageism, you're talking about, you know, stereotyping and discriminating against individuals and groups, you know, based on their age. And it's really a systemic problem. And it shows itself, you know, very prominently in the workforce in the form of like recruitment and hiring. You know, you'll see when younger applicants sometimes are shown, you know, more favorable processes because of their age, or, you know, on the job biases where you may have older workers who receive fewer opportunities for training or promotion or rewards. And also in the form, you know, when older employees are terminated, you know, when companies or the workforce try to trim their budgets by targeting senior employees for layoffs, or, you know, encouraging their senior employees to retire. So we see these things, and it's just become, you know, again, an acceptable bias. We fail to value our older workers, and sometimes we think that, you know, younger means better. But we know that, you know, older and mature workers demonstrate exceptional organizational leadership in the workplace. They tend to show up on time. They are great teammates. They, you know, they help their coworkers. They're loyal. They're reliable. They have a strong work ethic. You know, they have high skill level from the, you know, from the time that they've been on the job, and strong professional networks there. But we just don't tend to value, you know, our workers, I think, in the way that we really should.
So you cited some examples of age discrimination, and it sounds to me like a lot of it's kind of nuanced. Often there's, you know, something that happens in the workplace, you think, that's just not right, but it isn't obviously outwardly said, okay, we're getting rid of this person because they are over 50. So what else does age discrimination look like? I mean, what else have you seen out there?
I mean, and yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you look at discrimination, period, I mean, it's not typically going to be that type of overt or direct discrimination that you see. You know, somebody's not going to say, I'm not hiring you because, you know, you're a mature worker. They're not going to say that. They're not going to do that. It's going to be indirect types of discrimination. You're going to be passed over for promotion, or you're not going to get that job interview, or, you know, that you're going to be passed over the opportunity to do that extra training or go to that conference, or things that you know, that might benefit your, you know, professional development and growth. And so you see that manifest itself in those ways. But again, I mean, you know, discrimination takes so many different forms. And, you know, when you look at age discrimination and how it crosses protected class spaces, you know, age, when you couple that with like age and gender, and age and race, and age and national origin, and age and, you know, disability, for example, We know that according to the EEOC, women file more age-related complaints annually than men, although they make up, less than half of the overall workforce. There's still, the wage and the earning gap between men and women, in the workplace. This discrimination has a huge ripple effect. When you look at 29% of the US households are headed by somebody that's 55 or older, but they have no retirement savings or pension, which means they're going to have to continue to work and rely on Social Security to survive as long as it's solvent. The older people don't feel as useful in the workplace, are more likely to develop disabilities, 4 times more likely to die prematurely compared to their counterparts. I was reading a study the other day, and they were talking about, the life expectancy for African-American males, and that it's, the life expectancy being, 72 years. And if they work until, they can get, their Social Security or Social Security benefits, you worked your entire life, right? So I feel like there are so many different ripple effects that have just caused, just make discrimination so much difficult and so harder, based on age. And like I said, race and all those other protected class bases that factor in as well.
Definitely. So if someone feels like they're facing age discrimination, what are the first steps they should take to address it?
I think that obviously, I believe in protecting your rights, right? So, I think that it's important, number one, that you are able to identify when, you feel like your rights are being violated. I think it is important to have open communication with your supervisors and your managers. And so I do feel it's important that, if there is, a concern that you have about opportunities that you may be missing, or, feeling that you may be being treated unfairly in the workplace, that you should, speak to your manager. But at the end of the day, I believe it's important for you to protect your rights. And if you feel like, your rights are being violated, you should file a complaint, and you should go through the process, and try to, and to secure those rights.
So say somebody has gone to their HR department and has made a complaint and is not getting where they need to go as far as like addressing the issue.
Sure.
At what point would someone need to file with the EEOC?
So if you were going to file a complaint with the EEOC, you would need to file that complaint within 180 days, of the adverse action, whatever that is, whether you were passed over for a promotion, or whether you were terminated or whatever, or you're harassed on the workplace or retaliated against because you exercise your rights to complain. So you would need to file that complaint within 180 days. There are some local and state laws that allow you to, that will extend. So for example, for the city of Austin, if you had a complaint, you would have almost a year to file the complaint in the administrative process. But if you're just going to the EEOC, you would need to file it within 180 days.
Okay. So can employers ask for somebody's age on like a job application? Is that allowed?
Well, I mean, honestly, they can. The law protects, discrimination, based on age. And it doesn't specifically say that you can't ask for a person's age on a job applicant. However, as an employer, that could be used as evidence of bias. So, I mean, I as an employer, I would not ask that question. And surely if you did, that could definitely play against you if, a complaint was filed.
Right. So what are some proactive measures that someone can do to prevent becoming a victim of age discrimination? I've heard of things like age proofing your resume. What are some of the things you can do?
That's really sad. I have heard of that, and and a lot of people do that. And I think that, at this day and age, I won't say that it's not a bad idea to do that. But I really feel like being aware of, what the law is, being aware of the processes, being aware of what people can and cannot do in the workplace is probably, and to have these discussions and talk about them in more forums like this, I think are really necessary for people to, begin to talk about, why these biases are not right, why ageism shouldn't be acceptable, and really start to become aware of their own actions and talk to others about those as well. I mean, I think that more than anything, we have to change culture. And to do that, it's more than just, the black and white or what's on paper, or, we have to change the way we think about it, to change the way we think about our workforce, change the way we think about age, change, how we think about our value system and be intentional about that. So I think it's really, we have to continue to have these conversations and try to change culture. And I think, our employers and our businesses have a responsibility, to do that as well, obviously, right? And to make sure that we train our management and we train our labor force to understand these things and be sensitive to all of these issues. And not put the onus on,
right,
the older, mature, worker.
All good ideas, good points. So looking at public policy, because that's where I work in, I know that the U.S. House of Representatives just passed the Protecting Older Workers Against Discrimination Act of 2021. Can you tell us what this legislation would do?
So this is actually a really great piece of legislation. So basically what it would do is revise the evidentiary standard for age discrimination that would allow a mixed motive claim. So basically there was a court case that really changed the standard, and it said, the Supreme Court decision in Gross versus FBL Financial Services required the complainant to prove that age was the but-for cause for the employer's decision. And this would allow a mixed motive claim. That means even if the employer had another reason for the adverse action, if age was a motivating factor, then you could be successful on your claim. And that's really important, because a lot of times there may be, no case is cut and dry, and there's always going to be other, ancillary issues and things that come into play. But if you can show that age was a factor, and if age was a factor, and an employer used a discriminatory basis to make that decision, then it's discriminatory action. And so this bill would revise that standard and allow for mixed motive cases.
Okay. So looking at the state and local level, are there some public policy actions that could be implemented at the state and local levels that would help with age discrimination in the workplace?
I think that it's really important that, we continue to work to have, local, state, and federal legislation that really gets to the root of, how we reverse discrimination, how we reverse the vestiges of it, and how we can look to protect people better. I think we should, really push for clear business policies that don't leave room for interpretation and discrimination. I would like to see, an increase in the age of protection for older workers, strengthen penalties and sanctions against violators, even increase maybe the statute of limitations in some for some of these violations. I think there are a lot of things, a lot of good things that we can do, but again, I think it's all going to come down to trying to change that culture. And I think clear business policies and employment practices, more training, more education, more outreach, more discussions, more forums such as these to really kind of, keep these at the forefront. And obviously, yes, passing some of these laws are going to be really important, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to have some bad actors. And if you do, you need to be able to have laws on the books to enforce, to be able to enforce these laws. So.
Great. Well, thank you, Carol. I think we're going to spend a little time opening it up to our audience. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm looking in the chat right now. I don't see any, but if anybody would like to come online and actually ask the question too, we'd be happy to start your video. So go ahead and raise your hand or give me a reaction or something so I can see that you might have a question. Ooh, I can hear somebody. I'm not sure who that is. I am not seeing any questions, but that doesn't mean they're not going to come through. Carol, I actually had a question for you, and I'm from Oregon, so I was really interested to see that you came from Oregon. What do you think about everything going on in Oregon right now? And it just seems like there's so much civil unrest. I actually was in Oregon about a month ago and drove through downtown, and it was devastating. It broke my heart.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on in Oregon and even across the country. I think that, we're starting to see, just a greater awareness about, just social justice issues. And Oregon has certainly been right there at the forefront of, when the protests were going on. And I think, I don't know, it's just a difficult time, I think, in our nation's history, but I do believe we're at a crossroads. And I'm, again, being here in Austin, I'm really proud of the fact that, the city has, created the first Office of Civil Rights, created the first civil rights officer, for Texas. This is an important step. And I hope to see other cities across the country begin to do that. I actually was contacted by the city of Portland. They were like, okay, we want to do something like you guys are doing there in Austin. So I think that, again, I mean, there's just, there are so many things that we need to do, and dealing with some of these systemic barriers. And, we're at a crossroads. So I'm happy to see, Austin taking the stance that it's taking, and us moving forward in this direction.
Excellent. I'm looking here to see if there's any other questions. Please, if you'd like to come on, just go ahead and either unmute or go ahead and show your video. We would be happy to have you come online and ask any questions that you might have. And I'm just looking to see if there's more. Of course, I have more questions. I guess I should start my video so that you're not just, talking. Oh, you can see my closet door open now. I'm busted. While we're waiting for other people to ask questions, Carol, I was wondering, what can businesses do? We've talked a lot from the employee standpoint, but what can businesses do to make sure that they're not doing the wrong thing, right now?
I think probably one of the most important things that businesses can do is just to make sure they're educated themselves, on what the rules and the regulations and the laws are. And I think that should be, something that happens on a continual basis. You can't have, one annual training that you sign off on and you're done,
Right.
And, so I think that businesses need to be active, participants in, the development of their workforce, their management, and their labor force. So I think that's probably the most important of it. And then, culture change I spoke of earlier is really important, and it comes from the top, and it comes from, the top leadership. So making sure you're implementing policies, not just policies, but practices as well that really reflect, the ethics and the culture, that businesses hope to portray and have, in their own workforces.
Well, where would they go for that kind of training? Because this is such a new topic, really, for so many big businesses, small businesses. So let's just say as a small business owner, where would I go to get some help?
Mm-hmm. There are a number of different businesses and consulting, firms that do HR consulting type work. But you can always, you can come to the city of Austin. We have training for businesses, for this purpose. You can go to the EEOC. They have a training development workshop seminar series as well, that help businesses understand, the nuances and complexes of employment, discrimination, age discrimination. So, there are a number of state resources as well. I'm sure TWC probably has a development and training course, for businesses as well. So there are a number of different ways that businesses can seek out and obtain that kind of development training, but it is important, for them to do that.
So, on the flip side, we've been helping people find employment during COVID. But the business thing really has me, because I know there's a lot of training that's been going on. I know my brother had to go through some special, training at his corporation too. So what could we do, let's say a nonprofit such as ours, to help businesses? Are there resources that we could add to our website? Do you have an opportunity that you could maybe do a training for businesses? Tell us a little bit more about how we might be able to learn all the stuff that you have in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, probably some of the best resources, resource links maybe to our website, at the City of Austin, to the EEOC's website. They've produced a lot of guidance post-COVID, dealing with different areas and different issues in the workplace. So that would probably be a good place to link information if you're interested, or if a business would be interested in, obtaining some training or development from the city, then they could reach out to our office. I'm trying to think about, I think there are probably, the EEOC has a specific training development calendar on their website.
Okay.
So, and it goes in, it's by subject topic and by region. So I think that would probably be a really good place to start to see, some of the areas that you might, be interested in as a business, to get some of this development also.
Perfect. I am not seeing any other questions, but hey guys, just lift up your hand or just go ahead and show your video. We're happy to have you here. We have a wealth of knowledge. It's a great time to ask a question. Hey, Wendy, we can see you, but you are muted. So go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I don't know if I'm unmuted now. Am I?
You are. You're perfect.
Okay. I don't know if it's because I didn't update my Zoom, but I'm having all kinds of trouble. And I don't know if other people are too. I can't get into chat or anything, and I can't see my settings. Anyway, so that may be the reason you're not hearing from more people. But for me, I guess I'm curious how to find the employers who are actually looking for us, who are looking for genuine diversity, to hire for genuine diversity, especially when it comes to age.
Great question. Carol,
that's a really good question. I'm not sure that that's a good question. I'm not sure that I have the answer to that though. I think that it'd be really wonderful if there was some repository, of age-friendly employers, that we could get to. I'm going to tell you, I mean, I have friends and family members who have experienced, these types of, this type of discrimination in age. And it's really devastating, and especially, you get someone who's worked their entire career, they have all this knowledge, they have all this competence. And the only barrier is age, and that's ridiculous and shameful. But I don't know. I mean, I would love, if anybody has an answer to that question, I would love to know it myself. I mean, but I think that, as we begin to, really start to talk about ageism, and really start to talk about, ways that we can, be better employers, be better advocates for ourselves and be better advocates for each other. This may be definitely something that, we should explore in terms of that. I know I've worked on a number of corporate boards who really have begun to start, talking about some of these types of things and eliminating some of these barriers and discriminatory practices based on age and race and other disability and other things. But, in terms of having, one place where we can go to find, age-friendly employers, I'm not sure.
We've talked about this in AustinUP, as a nonprofit, we do want to provide additional training for businesses and for employees. And we've talked about some kind of rating system for employers, just to encourage, just to start the conversation, giving them information, maybe have 5 things that they need to do so they could get this designation. So we've actually talked about doing something like that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great.
And we're very agile as a nonprofit. And so these are some of the things that if as a community, we feel like this is something that somebody should take on. I mean, that's something that we have talked about in the past. And if it really would be helpful, then we would love to do that. I'm going to go ahead and have you hide your picture. Thanks for coming on. And we have somebody else. Unfortunately, I don't see your name. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and then just asking your question.
I'm wondering if that's me. I'm Melissa.
It is you.
Okay. I can see my name. I don't know why it's not showing up for you. I'm Melissa Markman. I work in Austin City Council, Councilmember Allison Alter's office. But my question is I think there are a lot of, there are some myths associated with having older employees that they're more costly. For one, is there a place for us, or is there some data available, resources that you can share to help people to dispel some of these myths that would sort of be a catalyst to helping with a culture change?
I will say from the AARP's perspective, we actually do have a lot of data, and I would be happy to share that with folks after this. Just talking about some of the myths, talking about some of the actual facts on why older workers are so important to the workforce and so valuable. We definitely do have some info on our website, and I'd be happy to forward that to you.
If you could send it to us in the next couple of hours, we'll include it in a follow-up email to all the attendees. So we'll just include that with additional information from our speaker before. But yeah, that's a great thing. If there's some kind of even infographic or something that could encourage employers to think outside the box, I think that would be really, really great to share. I know I've read some articles where employers thought, okay, I'm going to go for cheap and I'm going to go for young, and it didn't work out. And what we're finding is a diverse employment pool helps the corporation, because you have all of those different experiences. You have young people who have just finished college, and so they've got some, skills that maybe an older person who hasn't just finished college. But I'm starting to read some articles where they might have made some mistakes, in getting rid of that rich knowledge, in those people who were older and they have so much history, in an organization, and it just goes away and nobody else has learned it. So it's hard. I think it's been hard on employers. Mm-hmm. But some kind of infographic would be awesome. We'll look at what you have, and then again, if we feel like this is something that maybe AustinUP could participate more in, if we think it's going to help our city, it could be something that as a board we think about doing, and maybe do it in the future.
The National Institute on Aging also has some good information to check out.
Okay, super.
Mythbusters and things like that.
Oh, Mythbusters. Okay, great. Okay, let me look and see if I have any more. So everybody's having problem with Zoom, so I don't feel that bad because it sounds like some of our other participants wanted to raise their hand and they weren't able to. It's just, is it a full moon? I don't know. Okay, so I'm just looking in here, guys. You can just unhide yourself and go ahead and unmute yourself. And we would love to hear from you. We've got a couple more minutes, so we'd be happy to answer any kind of questions. Trust me, it'd be hard to get you on the phone. So this is a great time to ask any kind of question. Okay, so we do have some questions in the chat. Hold on one second. Well, can either of you see your chat? I can't see it. Look in your chat. My chat has gone away along with everything across the bottom. I basically have nada.
So there's a question, says, I'm in Austin, hear you about EEOC. EEOC is contacted on a blatant case pro-employee, evident that EEOC even last 2 years seems to be bought by companies and corporations. They make decisions in favor of a company and leave Austin. I don't know.
Kind of more of a statement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just an observation in reality.
Yeah.
And,
Sorry.
you know, I think a lot of it, you know, discrimination is there's such difficult cases. And they're so difficult to show. And a lot of times, you know, the EEOC, and this is I mean, you know, the fact of the matter is they get so many complaints every year. And, you know, I just feel like the system is inundated, you know, with the complaint process. And a lot of times what will happen when you file a complaint with the EEOC is they will do kind of a cursory investigation, and then they'll issue right to sue letters because they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to take all of the cases to court, which is unfortunate, you know, because now you have a lack of access to, you know, justice, a lack of access to the judicial system. If you've been, you know, denied an employment opportunity or terminated, you probably don't have fees for attorneys. And you probably don't have, you know, resources to be able to hire independent, you know, counsel, you know, to have your case heard. So, I mean, and it is an unfortunate, you know, reality. But, you know, again, there are other resources you can file, you know, if it's within Austin, you can file your case with the city of Austin now, with the Office of Civil Rights. The state also has TWC, and you can file, you know, a complaint through the state process as well. But again, you know, unfortunately, I hear you, and I hear your comment, and, you know, I'm perplexed about it as well, because it's just, you know, it's unfortunate.
If you needed to get money to help you in that kind of case, is there a nonprofit or somebody who could help you, do you think, or is it?
There's, you know, honestly, for discrimination complaints, it's a little bit more difficult. I mean, if you had, you know, you've got legal services, Texas Legal Services. I don't know what they're called here. I came from Arkansas, it's Arkansas Legal Services, but every state, you know, has the nonprofit legal services. But a lot of times, you know, they take only certain types of cases. And so, you know, it would probably depend on what type of case you had, and, you know, whether or not it, you know, fit in the priority of the type of cases they're able to accept at that time. So they have limited resources as well. You know, and again, I mean, you know, with the discrimination cases, I would just say, don't give up, you know, on your opportunity to file a complaint. You know, if you feel like your rights have been violated, you know, exercise it, you know, and I just feel like, you know, for a person who's going through something like that, it's very difficult. It's very emotional, you know, and there are so many things involved with it. But I just feel like, you know, as, you know, just that activity of taking up for yourself, taking a stand, and, you know, just, you know, speaking out for yourself is therapeutic in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. I know the city of Austin is unusual in that they hired a person such as you for this position. Are there other cities that have done the same? How many cities have a position like yours in their city government?
We don't know of any other cities that
Oh
have,
my gosh.
this is it. So
Wow.
we're really, this is a really, really committed move by the city of Austin, and really shows, you know, just how progressive the city is, and just how much they want to, you know, just how forward thinking the leadership is. It's a wonderful time to do it. We're in a great space, and Austin, I think it's a place to make this stand. So
That's excellent. You're going to have people from all over cities asking you for help. Maybe you could go to Hawaii or someplace.
Yeah, I think we definitely are very, very busy right now. We definitely have a lot of things going on. It's a wonderful time again. But getting the office set up and really kind of, developing the infrastructure and getting things going. And we're excited to see what's going to happen in the next year and the next 2 years.
Well, I'm just looking to see if there's any other chats or anybody else who wants to get on video or unmute and ask a question. Please feel free to do that.
Jessica dropped a couple of resources in the chat, and so from AARP. So we can send that after this as well.
That's great. Yeah, just send them to Natalie, and then she'll put together the information. We'll send it out to everybody who is able to be on. Don't forget, we're on YouTube, so if somebody wants to come back later or you want somebody to watch it, you could. We're just getting so fancy. We're doing Zoom and YouTube, and who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? Were there any other topics that you wanted to discuss? I'm not seeing any other questions come through at this time.
No, I just think for us, I just want to say, I think that it's really, really important, again, to continue to have these types of conversations and continue to build the circle. I think the more we talk about it with our friends and our coworkers, and when you see instances of discrimination or bias, it's not okay to be quiet. I think it's you need to call those things out, in the diplomatic way that you can, but in the space and in the immediate. And I think that's the only way we're going to make, ageism not be an acceptable bias. And let people know that it's not appropriate to say or do things in the workplace that exclude people, and that are unfavorable and that treat them unfairly. And so I would just say, when you see these things, speak out, broaden your circle, talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, talk to your family members, broaden your sphere of influence, and let folks know how you feel about it.
That's a great message. Well, without further ado, I think we might be done. I don't see any more questions, any other concerns. Well, we're super excited to have this forum today, and we appreciate our sponsors for sponsoring the forum, and we look forward to seeing you next month at the next forum. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great, great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, now they come.